Peoples of the Worldwide Federated Internet. What's good? All right, so today I'm chilling with my daughter here. I know I haven't been on the Thinking in a while, so I figured I would post something today. It's hard to focus on the news while studying my Bible and really offer anything of substance to this podcast, which is one of the reasons why I rarely show up on this podcast. If you follow me on YouTube, Brook Nom, Instagram, Brook Nom's World, and all podcasting platforms, Brook Nom's World, I post there. My Bible podcast is daily. Every now and again, I'll miss a day here and there, but I'm pretty consistent posting to that weekly. And I know I keep saying I'm going to make an effort to post here weekly, and I'm really going to. Now, what was on my mind today, and I don't know if you have anything to say about this because I don't know how much you pay attention to this, but I have hesitated to say much on my podcast about Joe Biden because I wanted to give him some degree of respect. I wanted to give him an opportunity to do a good job or do a bad job. I didn't want to jump out the window and just say, this is horrible, he's going to do horrible right out the gate. I didn't know what he was going to do. I will say, and again, I don't know how much attention you pay to this, but I've been listening to his speeches, and it doesn't seem like Joe Biden is all there cognitively. It really does seem like, oh, y'all see the cat in the video. It really does seem like Joe Biden is not in his right mind. I've heard him talk at the G7 summit, I think is what it's called. I've heard different speeches that he's had over the past 4 months or so, and it seems like he struggles to collect his thoughts. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. I literally think he is struggling to collect his thoughts. I personally think that most times Joe Biden doesn't know where he is or what's going on. And I'm not saying that again to attack the man personally. I don't know the man personally. Politically, we have differences of opinion. I can't say I dislike him because I don't know him. As a believer, I've wanted to be more measured in my words when talking about politicians because I will have to give account for everything I say in my life. And I don't want to say something about a politician that I wouldn't want somebody saying about myself. So if somebody didn't know me, even if they didn't agree with, let's say, an ideological bent that I have, if they didn't agree, I wouldn't want them to say something about me personally when they don't know me. You can disagree with a person and say, hey, I hear his policy, I hear this or I hear that. I don't agree, but I don't know him. With that said, this is one of the first times in my life that I feel like I'm seeing what we've all thought was true. And what I mean is, I don't think Joe Biden is running this country. I personally think that Joe Biden has handlers. I don't think he is aware of, let's say, I'm going to be modest. Let's say, I don't think Joe Biden is aware of it at a bare minimum, 35% of what's actually going on in his administration. I think he's just a figurehead.
Maybe he just perceives himself that way. So, like, you don't really know what's
happening. Or
happening.
portrays himself that way, you mean?
Yeah, portrays himself that way. So you don't really know what's going on inside. And so people make that assumption and they think something else when they really don't know.
Which is possible. All I'm going on is hearing his speeches.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear some of Joe Biden's speeches, it's pretty astonishing. He gave one speech where a reporter asked him a question about Vladimir Putin, and he stopped mid-sentence, and it's almost like he changed directions. Like he didn't know what he wanted to say, and like his brain shut down. And he's done that several times. It almost seems like early onset dementia, and many people have said that. I'm no medical practitioner. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any kind of medical degree or training. But that doesn't change the fact that I can tell when somebody's not all there.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a medical degree for that. When I look at Joe Biden, when I hear him speak, and when just looking at him, he looks like an empty space. That's what I think when I see him.
I feel like kids my age, we don't really hear about Joe Biden that much. We hear more about Kamala Harris, which is weird because it used to be like the other way around.
So, which is interesting you say that, because I've heard things about Kamala Harris, but I can't really say that I know much about what she's doing, if anything.
All I know is that they're involved in some school thing. That was like that was like their biggest thing. And I don't see the schools changing in any way. So I don't know what they did.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with that. I have to look into that, if they had some kind of policy or something dealing with schools. I don't really know too much about that, so I won't speak to that. I know there's been a huge problem at the border with illegals coming across, partly due to encouragement from the Biden administration before becoming president. They were both very vocal, both him and Kamala Harris, about their desire for illegals to be able to come to the United States. Now, don't get me wrong. My view on other countries and how we deal with like our neighbors, namely Mexico and some countries further south, is evolving. And the reason it's evolving is I'm taking my viewpoints from the Bible. And the more I go to the Bible, the more I see people need help. And I understand that people need help. So because people need help, I can't just turn a blind eye to that and say, stay in your own country. I will honestly say I don't know what the fix is.
I feel like people should be able to come here, but you can't just have a whole bunch of people coming illegally, because then they're not paying taxes, and then we go broke and we lose jobs.
That's a fact. You collapse a whole country.
Yeah.
You can't have a country filled with people who are not paying into the systems they use. That's just going to be a drain, and eventually these systems collapse.
I mean, California.
Yeah, prime example. And I'm not saying that we need to let every illegal in, because you can't just have a country overtaken, right, with immigration. You can't do that. I don't know the solution, but I'm beginning to recognize that it's more complicated than it seems.
I feel like that's how somebody takes over the country. Like, you slowly start coming in, you slowly start taking over state by state, and the next thing you know, we're overruled by some other country.
That's a fact. That's exactly how that happens. That's pretty much an insurgency. And I do believe that's what's going on, whether it's on purpose or not. I mean, there's many conspiracy theories about why so many illegals or so many people from South America are coming to the United States trying to enter illegally. The thing is, with all of that said, with the fact that my viewpoint on this is evolving, mainly because I'm going to the Bible and trying to figure out how I should care about these people as a believer, right? These people are my neighbors. The Bible says to love your neighbor as yourself, right? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and love your neighbors yourself. These are the two greatest commandments. On these hang the law and the prophets, right? So with that in mind, I want to care about people in Central and South America because they are my neighbors. But the balance is that doesn't then mean I'm okay with them breaking our laws and coming into the country illegally.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know what we can do, if anything, to help them in the countries that they're in. And said, then you run into a bigger problem. The United States can't be big brother to the world. We have been doing that for many years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not helping. We can't assume that every country wants the same style government that we have. That's what we have assumed. That's why we have failed. In a large part, we have failed. And I hesitate to say this. I love my country. I love the men and women who risk their lives for this country. And I say this with hesitance, but for the most part, in Iraq and Afghanistan, we really have failed because I don't feel like we have accomplished anything of substance. I'm confident, or fairly confident, let's put it that way. I'm not a psychic, that if and when we leave Afghanistan, it's going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
We already saw that happen in Iraq when we pulled out the first time and ISIS took over, and then we had to go right back. Part of me believes that that same thing is going to happen if and when we pull out of Afghanistan. So then that leads me with the thought of, why were we there? What did we really do?
Yeah.
The problem is we can't be the world's police, and we
feel like
can't be the world's big brother.
it just handicapped them.
In a lot of ways. So Afghanistan, I understand why we went there. Now, whether there was nefarious motives behind that, whether there was something else at play behind the scenes, it's very possible, but I understand why we went there. Iraq, we had no business going to Iraq. Iraq posed no threat at the time. You weren't even born at the time, so unless you looked it up in a history book or looked up some information, you wouldn't really know. But we went into Afghanistan. And then out of nowhere, George Bush starts talking about going into Iraq. At the time, I was still young. I was in my early 20s. I just got out the military. I can't say I was fully bought into what he was saying, but I believed him. I thought, oh, okay, we need to go into Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
But I never stopped to think, well, what did Iraq do? I know in Afghanistan, they were housing the Al-Qaeda. The Taliban was helping them in some way. They housed Osama bin Laden, and a lot of his plots he did while he was in Afghanistan. So them giving him aid, I can understand why we waged war against the Taliban. Although, hindsight being what it is, I wonder if there was another way to handle this and get to Osama bin Laden without a full-scale war. I don't know. But I won't say it's a quagmire. I don't think it's that far, but I think the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, the unfortunate thing for all of the young men and women who gave up their lives in these countries, is what did it accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
And that really makes me mad. That young men and women who never got to have kids, never got to get married, never got to live a full life, gave their lives for a cause. But what was the cause?
Yeah.
If we leave Afghanistan and we leave Iraq and it falls apart, and by no means am I a proponent of staying there just because I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
The unfortunate thing is, what were their lives spent for? I know that's kind of a huge tangent I just went on, but back to what I was saying about Joe Biden. I think, in my personal opinion, I cannot prove this, and I am not saying this emphatically, and I'm not telling anyone that they have to believe this. I do not believe Joe Biden is doing anything of his own volition, of his own will. I believe he is controlled. I think that somebody behind the scenes is controlling Joe Biden, telling him what to say, what to do, when to do it. That is what unnerves me. When I was young, we always had conspiracy theories about, presidents not really running a country and puppet masters behind the scenes. But for the first time in my life, I feel like that's an actual thing. Like we're actually seeing it. Like this dude actually has a puppet master, and he's not running the country itself.
I feel like these 4 years, we're probably gonna get nowhere. In my opinion, I feel like we haven't gone anywhere these couple of months that he's been president.
I can agree. Trump, for all his faults, for all the problems people had with him, and legitimate issues, I'm no Trump apologist, but I can honestly say thus far, I will say this: at this point in Donald Trump's presidency, let's say about what 4, 5 months in, 6 months in, he had done a lot more than Joe Biden in a good way.
I feel like a lot of political people didn't like him because he knew what was happening and he was trying to like put an end to it.
I think Trump did want to fix some things within the country. I fully believe that he loved the country and wanted things to be done better. I think the way he went about some of those things didn't really win him any friends and didn't gain him any favors. But in a lot of ways, if you're gonna affect the country in a good way, you kind of have to be a bulldog.
Yeah.
The political sphere is very grueling. These people are not nice.
And I can't see Joe Biden as like somebody like scary. He portrays himself as somebody like, very soft and like nice.
Feeble.
Yeah.
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 That's a bad position for our country to be in right now, especially when dealing with other world leaders.
On the other hand, I could see him as like getting what he wants.
He was feared, whether people liked him or not, whether you liked him, whether you hated him. Donald Trump was feared, I believe, by world leaders, not because he was the greatest president ever. I think he was, how can I put this? I think he was a very good president. And I know some people out there might disagree. That is not an admission of perfection. And that's what people misunderstand. Me saying I believe he was a good president does not mean I believe he did everything right. But as a president, I think he was doing the best possible job he could do at the time, right? Joe Biden is perceived as very weak. Trump was perceived as a strong man because he was volatile. You didn't know what decision he was going to make. Joe Biden, if I was a world leader and there's something I wanted out of the United States, this would be the time that I would push for it. And I think many countries are doing just that.
I feel like having a weak leader is like an open opportunity for other countries to like take over.
There's many things I think being exploited in the United States. I think so. I'll tell you the things that I think is going on. I think, I don't want to say Generation X because it's not just Generation X. I think there is an obsession with immorality in the United States, not just in the United States, right? So in other countries as well. I also think there is a hyper racialization in both ways. Black, white, Hispanic, immigrant hatred.
Oh, okay.
Like people being pit against each other. Yeah. I think it's a divide and conquer tactic. I think there's powers that be at play that want everyone warring against each other. Now, for what reason?
It makes us easier to, I feel like it makes us easier to control. Like, we're all going against each other. We all have problems. It's easier to take those problems, give them like something like, hey, we'll fix your problems if you do this. Right.
Do this and this problem will be fixed. So pretty much create slaves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of being, what's the word I'm looking for? Instead of being citizens, we'll be serfs and slaves to a political class, monarchy or whatever comes after that. Maybe that's at play. I don't know. I don't.
What I don't like is how other countries can like buy land here. It's like, is that not suspicious to anybody?
So I don't think it should be allowed. and I know there's
because they don't allow us to do it.
many countries don't. There's many countries where you cannot buy land if you're not a citizen of that country. I don't have a list offhand. I'm pretty sure I could look it up. I don't want to do that right now. But I think that there is a concerted effort to weaken the country. Now, to what end? To what purpose? Whoever it is, whether it's being done on purpose or whether it's by default, just by the sheer nature of the United States being a growing superpower, one of the youngest countries on the planet that grew into a superpower. Empires collapse. And for all intents and purposes, the United States of America is an empire. We have military bases all over the globe. Our interests run far and wide. We are involved in almost everything going on throughout the world. I don't know that that's always necessarily a good thing. When your hands are in too many pots, you can't focus on the problems you have at home.
Yeah.
I think one of our biggest problems is we have huge amounts of money in foreign aid going to other countries. Now, I am all for helping neighbors. Again, I've been trying to think through these things biblically, and my thoughts have been evolving as I'm going through my Bible. But the thing I also understand is if I took money and food out of your mouth to feed another family and you starve, how does that help anyone? If I'm not in a position to help anyone else, it's not going to help me to take away from my family to give to another family so that my family can starve. Now, if I get myself into a position where I'm stable and I can help, that's the prime time to do it. I'm in a position to. But if I'm worse off, bad off myself, and then I take from what little I have to give to this other country, I'm just digging a deeper grave.
It's good to help people, but you also have to think about yourself and where it's going to get you to when you need something.
Well, I think to balance that, I have no problem with helping people, right? Again, the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. The thing is, does it really help? Okay, I'll put it to you this way. Let's say if I'm the only one in my family with the means to make enough money to, let's say, open a business to take care of my family so nobody has to work. But let's say instead of taking that money and opening a business so I could help all of us, I just give that money to everybody and I never open that business and they're broke a couple months later. Who did I really help?
You didn't help anybody.
You didn't help anybody. And that's the situation I think we're getting ourselves into as a country. I have no problem with helping other countries. What we need to do first is there's things we need to take care of at home first.
Or like if you're helping them, make sure it benefits you. Like if you're helping another country, make sure it benefits America too.
Yeah. So from at a nation's perspective, yes. If I was a world leader, I don't know how I would handle that. And this is why I hesitate. And this is one of the reasons I haven't really got into much political talk on a Thinking podcast in the last month and a half or so. Because I'm realizing it's easy for me to Monday morning quarterback and say what Joe Biden should do, what Kamala Harris should do. Now, this doesn't negate the fact that there are things that they're clearly doing wrong. There's missteps that they clearly have, things that they clearly could be doing different that they're not. But being a world leader, all of the weight that's on their shoulders, I don't know how I would handle that. And I don't know if I have enough information to know what is the right decision in every instant.
I think it's pretty scary to be a world leader, being in control of all of that. That's like, and stressful.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for that reason, I've tried to be objective when judging the job that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is doing, which is why I've hesitated to publicly say much about it, but I will say, I am fully convinced that Joe Biden is inept. I'm not saying that because I believe he's an idiot. I believe Joe Biden at one point in his life, whether you agree with him politically or not the case. Whether he's lied about things or did X, Y, Z, that's not the case. But I think at one point in Joe Biden's life, he was a fairly smart man. I'm not saying he was the smartest, and I'm not saying he was a genius. But I'm saying right now that there is a cognitive decline in his brain, and I don't think he has the ability to function at the level necessary to be president of the United States. And that's scary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people think about that, and I don't know how many people care, but when I hear him speak, I'm just like, this dude is not in a good space. This is not good.
It's scary knowing that like somebody behind the scenes could be controlling everything, and they could have like an ulterior motive, but we don't know if somebody is controlling him.
That's true. I can assume, but here's the thing. Here's what's even scarier. I think personally, and I cannot prove this is just what I think based on the bits and pieces of information I have. And again, I don't have the big picture, so I'm not saying that what I'm saying is 100% true. I think presidents have always been, I'm not going to say all, but I'm going to say a lot of presidents, let's put it that way, have been controlled by other people. I don't think this is the first time this has happened, and I do believe it's happening. I can't prove it. I'm not saying definitively. I'm saying this is what I think. This is my opinion. That's all it is an opinion. I think now we're just seeing it play out right in front of our faces.
Yeah.
Like, it's not hidden.
And people are so worried about like, oh, they're just so consumed with like this hate for Trump. Even though he's not president anymore,
right? Which is weird. It's like, why are you still talking about him? Like, this dude is not even president.
That they don't see what's happening right in front of them.
Not paying attention is almost like a magician with sleight of hand.
Mm-hmm.
They're so busy paying attention to the left hand that the right hand is robbing them blind.
Or like COVID. They're so worried about COVID.
Yeah.
That like you don't see what's happening in front of you either.
Right. Which makes you think there's many people that thought that the coronavirus was a biological weapon sent to the United States by China. Excuse me. I don't know that that's what happened. I can't say that that's what happened, but some people say that. But this is the thing. It is not beyond the realm of possibility. And when people try to make it seem like it's beyond the realm of possibility, that's when I'm like, all right, y'all need to chill out. Y'all bugging.
The thing that's so crazy is that people here won't see what's happening right in front of their faces, but in other countries they're just like, oh yeah, I see what's happening there.
Yeah. When the election was going on, you remember that video that I was playing from the Australian news anchors?
Yeah, what's the word? I don't know the word. It didn't come to me that like why they were talking about us.
Right.
Because I was like, that's weird. They're talking about us. We don't talk about them.
Right.
But then I see like they see things we don't see.
Being on the outside.
Yeah.
But what's funny is it seems like they saw more than our own media.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they
I think that was done purposely though.
Yeah, I think the media personally, again, these are just opinions. My opinion is not fact. My opinion is not law. But I think personally that the American press was holding water for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I think there's many stories that they purposely didn't focus on during the campaign. I think there's many things they glossed over just to make sure Joe Biden looked good in front of the people. And many people, you know me, I would say I'm a news junkie, but I'm not necessarily a news junkie. I'm an information junkie. Bible, news, history, comic books, all day long. That's what I'm about. I'm a junkie about all of those things. I love the Bible. I love studying the Bible. I love theology. I love Bible history. I love Bible archaeology. And I love paying attention to world events because it's fascinating to me how history repeats itself, and I can see patterns from history playing out now. And what's astonishing is, in every moment in history where some tragic event was repeated, the same thing was always happening. There was political infighting, and people weren't paying attention to the collapse around them because of the political infighting. That's played out in history time and time again. It played out in Greece, it played out in Rome, and it's playing out here the same way.
The fact that other countries can see what's happening and we can't see it, or like, I know, because you'll tell me if something's happening so we can see it, but like other people can't see it, is like, that should be scary to them.
I think part of it is people don't want to see it. And there's a lot of things. So there's some issues I want to deal with on this podcast. I realize why people don't pay attention, I believe. And I think these things are done on purpose, which it kind of unnerves me. This is what I think. People worry about bills. People got bills to pay. Some people are barely making enough money. If you're broke, what time do you have to worry about what's going on in the news?
That all means nothing if the country falls apart.
It doesn't. But just think about this, because I grew up broke, so I can speak from personal experience. When you don't know where the next meal is coming from, you could care less about what's going on in Washington. And to a person that's rationally thinking through this, that doesn't make sense, but it actually does make sense. Because the person who's broke and destitute is only concerned with what's in front of them right now. They're not worried about what's going to happen the next day. They're worried about, can I pay this mortgage? Can I make this car payment? Can I get food? Am I going to be able to get clothes for my kids? Am I going to be able to do X, Y, or Z? That's all they're worried about. And I think, personally, again, this is just my opinion. This is not a fact. It is just my opinion. I think there's powers at play that want things to be that way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I feel that way too. I feel like there are a lot of people who don't want this country to do good, who want to see us fail for some reason that's unknown. But I don't think they realize if we fail, they fail too, because they're in this country.
Well, do they? Do they though? Just think about it. Let's say if it is a group of rich elites that want this country to fail, is it going to hurt them if the country fails? No. They got enough money to go buy some land in the middle of nowhere, have an island, get on their private jet, go. They have money to be able to survive a collapse.
Will that money mean anything when we collapse?
No. So it won't necessarily mean anything. You're correct. But think about it this way. If you have enough money to purchase an island, right, which people do in the Caribbean, I don't know if you know that. People own personal islands. Let's say you're a rich person, you're plotting for the collapse of a country or a group of rich people. All of you buy an island. You know when the collapse is going to happen because you're plotting on it. You go to your island right before the collapse. You got food. You got, let's say you're growing stuff on your island. You got some animals. You got some cattle. You're good. You can fish. You're good. You're not worried about a collapse that will affect other people. You're just going to wait for the dust to settle so you can come in and pick up the scraps. There's many stories I want to get to in some future episodes. One of those stories is a company called BlackRock that's buying up a lot of commercial property in the United States, and they're outbidding normal people. I've been listening.
Where are they based?
I don't know where they're based out of. That's why I don't want to really discuss it too much yet, because I don't have enough details. But I've listened to a number of different podcasts, come across a few articles that I haven't sat down to weed through yet. But for the most part, what I'm hearing is people are having a hard time buying homes. I don't know how much you know about this, but the price of lumber, wood, has gone up like 300% or something like that.
The price of everything has gone up.
It is, but it's hard for people to build homes. So this private company, BlackRock, and other companies, but this is the one people have been talking about, is buying up a bunch of property, and they're outbidding normal people, paying in some cases $50,000 to $100,000 over asking price for houses. So imagine you're going to buy a house. Imagine that house is worth 250,000. You saved up money. You have 45,000 or more for down payment, and you're like, "Yes, I'm gonna get this house." And this company comes in and pays 100,000 over the value of that house just to muscle you out of buying it.
That's suspicious.
That's what's going on.
That's
That's what's
crazy.
going on. And like I said, I don't have the details. I've heard people talking about it, so I don't want to speak emphatically, but when I look into that, if that is in fact what's going on, it seems as though there's a rich elite class that's muscling the rest of us out, and that is scary. Anyway, I will be coming back to the Think It Inc. podcast with some more episodes, Lord willing. Y'all know what it is. Stay frosty, people.